So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this lunchtime's session. We are today looking at digital traffic regulation orders, what they are, and how we might want to use them, particularly in the bus sector. I'm Tim Rivet and I run Artig, and we're running this with the DFT because over the last few years we've been working on a range of different bits of advice and guidance and standards, and increasingly those are needing to include information about the road networks. So everything from the guidance that we've produced on how to avoid low bridge strikes as an operator, work on disruptions and disruptions and diversions, bus priority, bus stop naptown update processes, bus safety, the whole range of things increasingly needing information about the road network. And one of the big challenges that we've found, and those of you that have been involved in our working groups will have seen, is the actually access to some of the basic road data beyond where it is spatially has been one of the challenges that we faced. For example, multiple suppliers of bridge height data rather than single source of truth and things like that. So we've been watching what's going on with traffic regulation orders for a few years and felt that it was sort of about at the point where it's worth us starting to actually pay some real attention to what it's capable of, and how we might be able to use it. And so today we've got the Department of Transport's team with us who are going to talk to us. Do you want to flip to the next slide, Gareth? Who are going to talk us through what's been going on with digital traffic regulation orders and their project, and then lead us into some discussions about how we as the bus sector might be able to use it. And so we've got Gareth, John and John who have been working on this, who are the real experts, and I will hand over to lead us through this session. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, we can do that. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, John, JC, do you want to go first?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's John Cooper. I'm the product owner for the Digital Traffic Regulation Orders, D-TRO, as we call it, beta. And I work in the digital projects team of the Traffic and Technology Division, which sits within the roads area of the Department for Transport.
Thanks, John. JHB?
Good morning, I'm John Harrod-Booth. I'm an independent consultant. I've been supporting DFT on their journey with digital traffic regulation orders now since 2018. I suppose in the D-TRO service perspective, I'm the data architect. I do a lot of other stuff. Tim knows me for doing other stuff. So, Gareth.
Hi everyone. My name's Gareth Tilley. I work for PA Consulting. We're the delivery partners for the D-TRO service, and my role is stakeholder engagement manager.
So thank you, and over to you.
So I'm going to kick off. So Gareth, bring me up to the intro. Okay, so just a few things in case you're not familiar with what we're talking about. So the traffic regulation orders define what you can and can't do on particular roads across the country. We are dealing with England for the purposes of this product. The TROs, for short, can be permanent, temporary, experimental. They can cover a variety of things, including parking controls, banned turns, speed limits, temporary closures of roads, special events orders for events, and experimental orders where you want to try out something to see if it works. The underpinning legislation for all of this goes back to the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984. And it's important to note that whatever we've been doing with digital traffic regulation orders hasn't changed the underpinning legislation. So legal TROs are still generally paper-based and signed off, often kept in filing cabinets, but sometimes are scanned in as PDFs and held on websites. Although in recent years, maybe 10 to 20 years, various companies have come along and offered the ability to create digital orders. But the thing to note with what they did was they were all using their own proprietary types of software and producing digital orders to various different specifications. What we are doing with the Digital Traffic Regulation Orders project is to bring this all together and standardize it, and also make sure that the orders are held together centrally for the first time. The TRO world is very much a classic of a decentralized, localized way of storing information. Moving on to the next slide, please. As JHB mentioned, his work on this goes back to 2018, and that takes us back to a discovery project that we did called the Local Transport Data Discovery. This sets the framework for quite a wide program of modernization and digitalization work within the Department for Transport. And one of the key recommendations of that report was to investigate and produce a system for digital traffic regulation orders. All these other projects here, which includes 3 different alphas, a TRO discovery, and the eventual beta project that we are working on now, stemmed off from that project. Various things were done in these stages of work, including deciding on what type of service that the eventual D-TRO system should be. Gareth's going to go over that in a bit more detail when I hand over to him about what we've actually done. But suffice to say that the D-TRO Alpha in 2023, which came approximately 5 years after it all started, was the first time we actually had a working service for the storage of the orders, and a centralized repository using an API was the chosen system. So that's a bit of background on what we've been doing. We've been in our private beta since 2024, and now we're in 26. Along the way, in 2024, we got legislation to underpin this and make it a requirement. So as Section 93 of this Automated Vehicles Act 2024 contains the provisions for what types of TRO are going to be required to be sent to the Digital Traffic Regulation Orders Service. We're currently in public beta, but we are still waiting on the secondary legislation to support this to be rolled out. But once that is confirmed, we will get a date by which traffic regulation authorities, basically the local authorities, the highways authorities, will be required to send in the TROs that they make from a certain date to be specified in the future, and then we'll be really getting going. I think that might be largely the end of my kind of background bit to why we are where we are, and I'll hand over to Gareth, who will explain a bit more about what we've actually been doing and what we've built and how we've been doing it. So over to you, Gareth.
Cheers, John. Thanks. That's great. So yeah, as John was saying, I'm just going to give you a very high level introduction to the service. So effectively, it's an API first service. So there's no direct user interface into the data. And it's really very simple in terms of we've got an API to publish to the service and then an API to consume from the service. So the publishers, as John was saying, are local authorities. They are the statutory bodies that principally make TROs. There's a couple of others, including National Highways as well. They can either publish directly to the service, or they often use software they've been using often for a long time to create TROs. And we've interfaced to those solutions, and they then publish through our API. And then the data's open, it's free to use, it can be consumed by anyone who wants that data, and it's just, again, an open API to take that data out of the service. In order to get there, as John was saying, it's been quite a journey, and although the architecture is very simple, the underlying data models take quite a lot of time to build, and we're still iterating that with the help of users. John Howard Booth will go through a bit more detail on that shortly. And the other thing to highlight, again, as John Cooper said, it's a centralized service. So before, if you were a data consumer, if you wanted to know kind of information about speed limits, or you wanted to know information about parking restrictions, you'd end up effectively having to source that from local authorities. And this centralized solution, centralized service gets around that, and it pulls all the data. And when you think about kind of future of our sector, intelligent mobility, things like connected and autonomous vehicles, getting this type of information into a centralized data hub is really essential to drive innovation across the sector. So the big date for us, we were in private beta, which was a closed group to really iterate and improve the service. We did that for around 12 months, and we got some great, really useful insight from a pool of users. And we were really pleased in September of last year to go into public beta. And that was on the 24th of September. And the service is now open to all. So any local authority can publish to the service now in England, and any data consumer can then take data as well. It's a totally open service now. It's probably worth highlighting, local authorities in our vernacular, our parlance is traffic regulation authorities. We use that terminology because that's what's reflected in the Automated Vehicles Act. So in terms of numbers, in terms of stats, we've got over 90,000 digital traffic regulation orders that have been published to the service. We've got 200 publisher apps and over 100 consumer apps as well. So to put that into context, we've got roughly half the local authorities in England are publishing automatically to the service any temporary orders they've got, any temporary changes they've got. That's being automatically published to the service now. And we've got around 20% of the permanent orders into the service as well. So that's temporaries very much around road closures. So if the street work's going on, and the permanent is that underlying rules of the road, like parking restrictions, double yellow lines, one-way streets, all that kind of stuff. So we're getting increasingly good coverage as we moved into public beta. We're seeing use of the service increase from the data consumer side as well. That's really ramping up. And as we were talking to Tim, I was talking to Tim at a conference recently, and we thought it'd be a really good time to engage with RTIG and highlight the service and the data we're getting, and build out some of those use cases. John Howard Booth, over to your good self.
Okay, thank you, Gareth. Next slide, please. So as John said in his introduction, traffic regulation orders cover basically all of the local regulations that an authority can provide. We obviously have a set of national regulations that the highway code style information, but when you get into a local regime, traffic regulation orders really set the tone. And as John said, that covers a broad spectrum. So speed limits, new permanent regulations, so that might be parking restrictions, waiting restrictions, access restrictions, but also temporary. So if you are going to close the road or change the speed limit, if you're doing works, street works or what have you, then you're obliged to have a temporary TTRO, and that, as part of that, also is expected to contain or should contain alternate diversion route data as well. There are numerous regulation types. So we're going from a landscape. John mentioned the primary legislation, the Road Traffic Regulations Act from 1994. So we have a long legacy of TROs. In fact, we have examples going back much further than that. I think 1933 is the earliest we found so far. And they are human-centric legal documents. And so we've obviously had to develop over time a data structure, a way of encoding that into a machine-readable form. That's within a coherent and consistent data model. And the data model, in simple terms, takes a TRO and says, where is it? What is it? When is it? You may have temporary operations, different times of day, days a week. Who does it affect? Who is exempt? And how much does it cost? And so that's the broad spectrum of what's in the data model. Of consumption by public transport, by buses, there's some obvious ones in there. So we've regulations to do with bus gates, bus lanes, height, weight restrictions, these sorts of things. We also have a limited set at the moment of some non-TRO data. So bus stops do not require TRO, but we have the ability in there to allow local authorities to supply that data, which strictly speaking, they're not obliged, but they may choose to do. The stuff on the left, which you won't be able to read, is the category of 70 odd different types of regulation. And that's all of those that we currently do. That list is likely to adapt over time. But really what I've pulled out on the right-hand side are some examples of things that need to be relevant for bus operations. So dimensions, weight restrictions, width restrictions, height restrictions, low bridges clearly being a feature, but width restrictions as well, quite important. Movement, so as evolution to the work and the traffic circulation occurs, streets, mandatory turns, mandatory directions, overtaking bans, traffic priority, so two-way flow with one-way, we get those as well. No stopping, no waiting, clearways, bus lanes, bus stops, and perhaps more so on a temporary basis, lane closures, road closures, allied with alternate diversion routes, but also some of the temporary things to do with, for example, suspension of bus lanes and suspension of one-way systems, and curbside related regulations such as restrictions to do with set down pickup, city centres and sporting venues. So there's a very broad spectrum of possible data there that might be useful. It's worth saying two things. I mentioned the figure of 90,000 TROs that have come into the service so far. They can be very different in scale. So an individual traffic regulation order may be a parking restriction on a street or a single piece of a single street, but it could also be the entirety of Redbridge, for example. So we have orders that cover all of the regulations in Redbridge. I think in our most extreme case, a single TRO that contains 11 locations and a vast variety of different types of regulations within the single. So 90,000 is a way of viewing it, but if you looked at the individual regulation, we're well up above that at this point. The other comment was Gareth, I'm going to pick you up because you said 20% permanent orders. What we have is about 20% of authorities who are applying permanent orders. At the moment, they're not obliged to do anything. It's all complete. When the legislation comes in, they will be able to supply new orders. If they choose to, they can then supply us late backlog. That's an issue that DFT will deal with in due course. Back over to Gareth, I'm going to say.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to highlight some of the use cases that we have seen and people already using a D-TRO data for in this space. So, as I said, it is a API first service. Inherently, we don't have some WYSI graphical interface, but to give you an idea of how the data can be used in graphical services. So on the left-hand side here is the tool. This is from the Causeway, a solution that a local authority would use to create their TRO. And they've used this in this instant to map out a bus bay. So that's at the top in orange. That then gets turned into our JSON file, a JSON file that can be then published to the service. And then that very same bus bay is then taken here by Google and put into their service as well. So you can see how effectively a local authority can publish information to the service, and that can then be extracted and consumed by a party like Google. In terms of some of the information, some of these cases we've been speaking to people about, and people are really keen to use to have bots which are published to the service, and then us effectively take that get published to D-TRO, and then that be consumed by the correct parties. It's a bit of a chain to get that information into the cab, but we're working with the local bus operators to get that published and that information to buses. We've got enforcement restrictions, so bus lanes, bus gates. So there's people who are looking at taking information on bus lanes, using that as a information service. So particularly in London, it's quite a maze, quite hard to know where all the bus lanes are, and providing that, for example, as an app or tool that you can download. And speed limits is obviously an inherent one, just getting that information more readily available. So temporary information. So this is very much about planned road closures. So what we've already seen, I've already seen this, is where a bus real-time solution provider can take a planned road closure, put the agreed diversion route into the real-time information system, do advanced scheduling, for example. But I've seen it where, you can see the road closed, you can see the buses track onto the new route, confirming that road's closed. I know people on this call will be familiar of using buses as pro vehicles to understand how the network's running. So that's already happening. Those are kind of use cases that people are working on. What's interesting is when you start to combine the permanent and temporary data. So you've got information on, say, bridge height data, then you've got a temporary closure, a diversion route. You can see how that would inform a bus schedule or bus real-time system to make informed decisions on routing and advanced. Ideally, you want that advanced scheduling if you knew it's a road closure coming up in play. So these are just a couple of obvious ideas. These are a couple of things that I know people are working on, and some of the pilots that we're working on as well. But really, I think, Tim, what we wanted to do was have a discussion and get people's ideas, because this is very much kind of, I'm sure there'll be people on this call who'll be sparked interest and have a lot of ideas and thoughts on where this data could be used. Yeah, just very quickly, how do you access the service? Essentially, there's an open registration at dtros.dft.gov.uk. You can create your account there, particularly if you're a data consumer, and you can use the kind of your usual API software to extract and consume data from the service. We've got a variety of endpoints, including a get all function, so that enables you to get all the data in the service in one easy step. But we've got tailored searches as well. So that's how you access the service. Again, that's D-TRO at dft.gov.uk. Data spec and all the technical documentation is on our GitHub. Again, that's open. So if you Google GitHub D-TRO, you'll find it. And that's got the data model and kind of example files and things like that. It's also got a really useful open forum. So if people got any questions, there's a real community there where you can discuss any elements around the technical spec. And then just in terms of further information, the registration website I mentioned, if you do want to get in touch, we've got an email address, so that's D-TRO, so that's d-tro at dft.gov.uk, and we've got a mailbox there that we sift on a daily basis. And probably worth highlighting, on the Transport Technology Forum, we got some guidance, and we've also got our YouTube playlist as well. So we do technical webinars, other webinars as well, and all that information is available on YouTube too. That was all I was going to highlight, Tim. So back over to you yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So so we'll circulate the slides. So if you missed those email addresses and things like that, then you can get them. And the presentational parts of today's session will package up and put on YouTube like we do for a normal webinar. Yeah, hopefully that's useful. I'd like to thank Gareth and the two Johns for joining us today. It's been very useful. I hope the rest of you have found it a useful session, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks for our next webinar, which is looking at the Transport Data Action Plan and the implications for bus, and then following up the sort of the disruptions theme. In May, we've got a session with Lothian Buses looking at how they manage things during disruptions up in Edinburgh. So thank you for your time today. Hope you found it useful, and see you soon, either in person or on a call. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching this ARTIG webinar. To find out more about ARTIG and our work, then please visit our website at rtig.org.uk. Thank you.